Hey everyone, it's Ron from Fists of Rage Gaming. I think we've come to the end of our Settlement Survival series. If you haven't seen it yet, you should check it out. There's 20 episodes leading up to the point of what you see on the screen right now. Um, we built a city of approximately 930 people, maintained 92% happiness, 91% health, a little bit of stress. We could take it a little bit farther. What I thought I'd do is I thought I'd review the game. I think we've taken this as far as we can go without just kind of slightly building on everything we've done so far. And like I said, I thought I'd just do a overall review of the game. Now, mind you, I'm of the Civilization era. I'm a huge Sid Meier fan, as you can see behind me. Um, like the Humankind series. So I guess I'm more of the less detailed genre. Um, we're playing this game at 10 times speed. Um, as you know, if you watched the videos and you checked out the series, we didn't take advantage of some of the more detailed aspects of the game. For instance, in the docks, we didn't do a lot of ordering of things. Um, you could do a lot more ordering. As far as food goes, we didn't get too far into some of these foods. We never made potatoes, we never made corn, we never grew rice, never made toast, never made croissants, fruit cakes. So there's a lot more in the food that we could have done. Definitely didn't grow mushrooms, didn't grow onions. Don't think we grew chilies, tomatoes. There's a lot more things we could have done. And although that may be looked down upon, I guess, in a way, keep in mind, we've got probably just in this series about 25 hours into the game, and we're running at 10 times speed. Um, so to take advantage of all the aspects of this game, we would have really had to slow things down. And to be honest, I think at that slow of a pace, unless you were huge into micromanaging, I personally think it would make the game a little less fun. Mm, I mean, there's something to be said for micromanaging. I don't necessarily mind it that much, but like I said, the fact that we didn't really even touch on ordering, we just toward the last few episodes finally, if you remember, got our horses. And the spare horses started to help with our transportation. Storage got out of hand. Um, but we were able to expand, so you'll see some of the store or some of the warehouses aren't in that bad a shape. Um, we still have some extra room. You do the typical things like taking down houses to put up the garden villas, taking down the garden villas to put up luxury apartments. That was, that's a neat little twist. One of the things I did like about this game that made it pretty individual is the senior housing. Senior housing was interesting because the seniors would move into these first, and it would kind of loosen up the houses and the villas and the apartments to everybody else, the younger generation that could have children, have families, and fill up those houses. At first, we were worried because I built an extra senior housing and it never filled up, but obviously this one did, so we could have built another one. Another pretty good aspect of the game is the differentiations of religions. You see, we have a mosque, but you'll see we also had cathedrals. So you do have different faiths. In the trading category, you had the factions, which were interesting. You could grab these different factions, and as you traded more with them and your reputation went up, you started to gain more of these specialized items that you couldn't get elsewhere. This Grand Palace, for instance, you know, you can see right there, it would boost your reputation with all factions by 100%. Lorenzo, there's one down here, the castle, accommodated up to 80 families and 400 people. and can relieve 25% of stress. So that's a huge one to get to. So, there are some to get to, but again, we didn't go too crazy with trade. And the thing that kind of worries me, I guess, in a way, is if we started getting into this ordering, and I mean, keep in mind, a minute ago we just looked at the food. We didn't look at the beverages, all the different wine you could make, the different teas, um, you know, different the different raw materials: mulberry leaves, silkworm cocoons, silk. We didn't even really hit on those. Um, and to start taking advantage of all those, start to try and grow all the different crops. And with all the different crops, you're going to have your production buildings to try and make those crops into something else. Um, just to me, it seems like to play an entire game. I mean, you're talking probably 100 hours, 100 hours to get to a decent sized city and take advantage of all the possible micromanaging you could. you know, do most people want to invest 100 hours in a single game? I don't know. I mean, that obviously that would be up to you. Myself personally, I wouldn't. I'd probably grow impatient. I'd probably want to start over, or just simply move on to another game. And the reason for me, one of the bigger reasons for me, is there's no enemy in this game. Um, as much as I do kind of get dragged into the production, and the different production paths, from raw materials to taking those raw materials, for instance, like the cotton, and making the cotton into linen, and then taking that linen and making it into another product. That three-tier production is kind of cool, but there's always that background to me that thinks Farmville, because there's no threat. Um, you don't have to deal with other cities invading. You don't have to deal with attacks of any kind, which technically, in a historical sense, is almost impossible, especially at this stage in a in a culture where they're building luxury apartments. I mean, by then you definitely have attacks coming, trade wars, if nothing else. Um, I mean, you do have the occasional, if you look up in the upper right there, you get yield increases, you get immigrants coming, you get earthquakes, you get floods. But even then, if you've seen those in our videos, they're not really that devastating. Um, Earthquakes have almost no effect whatsoever, simply because we got enough builders to just keep our buildings repaired. Um, so I don't know, as much as I enjoyed playing the game, it it not only would you have to put a ton of time into having making a complete game, because I mean, we didn't even get into decorations. The decorations to me seem very odd. I a giant cat statue. Um, and obviously I could research all this and I could get into it a lot more, and discover what all these things are for. Um, and while some of these are cool, like your stone lanterns seem to fit the genre of the game, you get into weird things like, you know, uh, Pain Tombstone, okay, Sickle Windmill. I mean, some of these, they're just kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of things. But the furniture, why would I put a round stool just randomly out in the middle of nowhere? Why would I put a sofa just out there in the middle of nowhere? Is there a reason? Might it make sense? Maybe, but then again, this adds even more to the game. Does this, over the time, does it take it to 110 hours, 120 hours, just making it even more immersive, but yet just painfully long. I mean, to be honest, to take advantage of all these things, there's no way you could run it at 10 speed. If you did, you just have to keep pausing and pausing and pausing, and then it takes it down to, what would have been 5 speed. Pause it and pause it and pause it. You end up at 3 speed. You know, six of one, half dozen of another. You know, you'll end up with the same amount of time into it. And you know, if you watched our videos, you know, we kind of cruise through it a little bit, you know, especially at 10 speed. And that's why I don't think we could take advantage of all the ordering. Um, if you remember, I think it was through episodes, was it 9 through 12 or 10 through 13 or something like that? We did make a small adjustment to our food. We took a couple people off the farms and it just wrecked it for, you know, almost 3 episodes. So I think there is some tweaking that needs to be done. I don't know if that was more my fault, but looking back on it, I don't think I made that big of a change. Um, you know, I think we had all these farms in action. Obviously, much fewer population, but I could swear I took maybe one, two, three farmers out of this whole area, and once the balance twisted a little bit toward, um, you know, a little bit toward the negative, it just snowballed and it went crazy. And it was almost impossible because they were taking every piece of food and storing it in the houses, and you know, I think we filled up 2 graveyards in that one, so that was pretty tense. The other problem we ran into was clothing. You know, it seems like unless you keep a very very large stock of each thing, it can go negative quick, and it's so hard to recover. And again, I don't know if that's the style that I played. Maybe, you know, I just didn't know enough to recover fast enough. But you know, that kind of soured me on the game. If you watch the episodes, you'll remember I was kind of like, ugh, you know, do I even want to keep going? Because I'm losing so many people, and it's just so hard to recover. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's an interesting game. You know, there's a lot of map. You know, there's a lot of maps still that I didn't work with. But again, you know, you're talking we're 20 a good 25 hours into this game, you know, and sure, we've got a lot of area going on. You know, this was a pretty neat construct um, where we had the compost plant right in the middle and built the, you know, all it had to do was touch these fields around it, and it qualified them to have the, um, that one we didn't. There we have a resource bonus. Yes, we don't on the corners, only on the flat sides. So apparently we have to have more than one square. But either way, you know, it was an experiment that we tried. It was pretty interesting, you know, having the pastures around the outside. And you know, it's kind of typical in the progression of the housing. It's kind of typical in progression of the different pastures you can have. Um, so I don't know. You know, would I necessarily buy it to play it? You know, looking back, I don't know if I would. I could check real quick. I think I want to say, I can't check right now, but I want to say it was $24.99 on Steam. Is it worth the price? You know, it's still early access. Um, Man, I don't know. I think in the grand scheme of things, for what it's made for, you know, for the genre it tries to serve, I think it's a good game. Um, you know, if you're into very very heavy micromanaging in a game you could spend 100 hours playing, um, it would probably be worth it to you. The replayability though, I don't know. You know, other than the maps, you know, other than different maps, there's not much that I think could be different. Um, you know, at least, and the reason I say that is because it's only positive construction. If there was, you know, enemy armies, if there was attacks, then I think the landscape would make a lot more difference. You know, rivers would be protection unless they built bridges across them. You know, so it would make more of a difference where you built your city. Here the only thing you're doing is making sure, well, I'm near water so I can, you know, make my reservoirs, so I can build things like my reed fields, and I can build water versions of my sawmills, of my textile mills, etc. You know, so I mean, even the city, you know, where you put your town hall doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, unless there was an enemy. If there was an enemy, that would change everything. You know, would you take your town hall and your storage? You couldn't have warehouses just scattered all over the place if you had enemies. The way it is now, I could put warehouses wherever I want. It doesn't really matter. Um, you know, Again, if I wanted to micromanage it, if I wanted to do more strategic placements of my transfer stations, my warehouses, and all these other things, sure, I could micromanage that. But again, it it just increases the time it takes to complete a game. And I just don't think there's that excitement you'd get with like with a civilization where if you put 100 hours into a game of civilization, not only would it be a very long game of civilization, but you've conquered other civilizations. You're building an empire, you're crossing oceans, you're having to build your cities to not only produce but defend. So I think there's a little bit missing for this game. So for me, I guess out of 10, for what it is and what I feel it's lacking, I'd probably give it about a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10 is the best I could do. Um, would it be higher if this is your exact type of game where you want to micromanage things to death? You don't mind spending 100 hours on a game? Um, then I think it'd probably be rated higher. But for me, in the genre, I'd say, you know, 7 out of 10. And really, I think that's being kind of generous because I think the replayability is limited. I think to take advantage of all the features of the game, it'd just take way too long to complete a game. Um, but again, if you like that sort of thing, this is your jam. If you don't want to have to worry about armies attacking, that's a plus for you. If you just want to micromanage the heck out of things, this game would definitely be for you. If you want to spend, 100 hours on a game, again, this game is for you. But I'd say that generally, overall, to the people in this genre, I would probably give it, a solid 7 out of 10. So if you agree, disagree, have constructive criticism, please leave it in the comments. Feel free to. We always try and answer all of the comments that we get, and maybe we'll visit this game again. But we've got so many other games on tap to play that I don't know that we'll get back to this one very soon. But you know what? Never say never. That being said, if you enjoyed our series, if you enjoyed this review, please leave a like. Consider subscribing to the channel to help us grow, and click that notification bell to be notified of our future videos and see all the other videos that we're going to be putting out on a lot of games in this genre and some other genres. So I hope you enjoyed it. And with that being said, until next time, I'm Ron, and this is Fists of Rage Gaming.